friends and YouTube. It's me, obviously, in Rwanda. So right now I'm sitting outside my home. I'm in my backyard, and at any time you might hear our cows or our chickens or Francois, our cowboy, or Muchesha, our house girl, or Jane, my sister. So don't be alarmed. There are people around and animals around. So, first, I'm going to talk about my first impression. So, today is October 14th, and I'm just going to start off by telling you my first impressions and answering some questions that I get frequently in my emails about Rwanda and how I'm doing and how I like it here. So, my first impression, so getting off the plane, stepping off on the ground, like there was this feeling that I can't really describe, but it just felt right. There's this scent in the air, like the air was fragrant with this smell that was familiar, and I couldn't quite describe it, but I knew it, and it was familiar, and it just felt good, and it felt like I was home again for the second time, my second time in Africa. People who know me know that I studied abroad in college in West Africa. So now this is a new experience in East Central Africa, but it still felt like home. It still felt good. It was really exciting. The first night, everyone was super excited, super pumped, super hyped up. And I just kind of sat quietly to myself in a corner, drinking Rwandan tea, which is delicious. Just like I had this stillness and this calm, and it just felt really, really good. So when we first came, we arrived in Kigali and we spent 2 nights there. And then we moved to my site now. So now I'm in Kamonyi, in the Kamonyi district of Rwanda, and I'm staying with a host family, and they are great. I have a mom and a dad. And they're both older. They're in their 60s. And I have 9 brothers and sisters, but only one lives at the house, and she's 22. Um, Also, our cowboy Francois lives here, and our house girl. We have 2 chickens, no, 2 cows, and a bunch of chickens. I'm not really sure how many chickens. But it's great. I love it here. Um, yeah, the culture is really different from Ghana. Some things remind me of Ghana, some things don't. People are very reserved. People ask about, I get questions about food all the time. So most of the time I eat rice and potato. They eat a lot of starch. Rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes. They have beans. They have cassava, which I don't like. They have plantain, which I don't like. It's different from the plantain in Ghana, which I really loved. But yeah, it's different, and I don't really like that. We eat that a lot. We eat cabbage. We eat dodo, which is like greens, sort of, but it's prepared differently. We eat carrots. We eat avocados, pineapple. Sometimes we have papaya. We have bananas. But yeah, that's basically what I eat every day. Every day. Every meal. Um, they don't use a lot of spices or a lot of seasoning, so it's kind of bland. So thank God I brought my own spices. I'm really looking forward to moving to site, where I'll cook for myself. They eat really large portions, like really large portions, and they look at me crazy when I don't want to eat that much. And then, like, I've been told on more than one occasion, like, you're very, very fat. How do you eat such little food? Like, which is something that's like, it's not rude to say that here. So people say it all the time. I'm like, dude, whatever, genetics or something. I don't know. People ask about the climate a lot. So right now it's the rainy season, so it's cooler. Um, Rwanda is also at a high elevation, so it's also cooler for that reason. But like I said, it's cool during the day. Sometimes though, it can be hot-ish, like in the 70s and 80s, and then at night it'll cool down, like really cool down, like 50s cool. Like I had to buy a thick like blanket for my bed because it was freezing at night. And it rains sometimes every day, sometimes like for a really long time, sometimes for a very short time. Rwandans are afraid of the rain, so stuff gets shut down when it rains. Like class is canceled also because they have tin roofs, and that just makes so much noise, and you can't even hear like the person sitting next to you. So things shut down when it rains. They're like afraid of the rain. Culturally, they're really into being very clean, particularly clean feet and clean shoes, which is like weird because the American like philosophy while we're here is like we're in Africa, we're gonna be dirty a lot, but they're like super like they'll call you out like you need to clean your shoes. What other cultural differences? People ask all the time if you're married or single. It's really common for people to ask, "Are you married? Do you have children? If not, why?" Um, they're surprised that we're so young and have degrees because here people are older. So while I'm talking about that, I got to go to my site, which is in the Ngoma region last week. So I spent a couple days in my district in the Ngoma region. And my city is Chibungo. And I met my students and my headmaster and my colleagues. Some of my students are older than me, which I anticipated, but everyone's really respectful. They respect teachers here, so I don't think I'll have a problem there. The staff, my colleagues are really welcoming. They're really nice. Some of them have impeccable English. Some of them not so much, and that's okay. That part of my job is to increase the language skills with my colleagues, not only with my students. So that's cool. I found out that I will be teaching Senior 1 and also Senior 4, which I can't remember. Their grade levels in America are either 6 and 9 or 7 and 10. So either way, Senior 1 and Senior 4, I'll be teaching like English grammar, of course, but also with a heavy focus on communication skills. Because they're transitioning from the Francophone system to the English system, Anglophone system. So that was really exciting. So quickly, my sister Jane wants to say hi, and I'll let her introduce herself and tell you a little bit about herself and what she does.
My name is Jane. My sister for Sierra.
Yeah.
The first seeing her, I'm very happy because see again my sister Sierra. Sometime I stay here to home.
They don't know where home is. Tell them where home is.
Okay. Mm, I like to cook and to help Sierra when when Sierra come back to school.
Mhm.
She tried to help me to cook. Um, and my family, like mother and the father, they are very happy because of my sister Sierra. It is good girl. It's so beautiful.
Oh, you're so sweet.
And then me, Jenny, I finished to study secondary school. To college Apeke Mercoma in Rwanda.
That's my sissy, Jane. And obviously, we spend a lot of time together. Um, so yeah, she helps me a lot. She's very helpful. She's the only English speaker in my home, so she does a lot of translating for me with Mama and Papa, and she helps me work on my Kinyarwanda. I promised that I would be honest and real and raw and talk about challenges as well. So one of the challenges that I'm finding, one is being a colored volunteer, being a colored young woman. Also, being American, we're very individualistic, and most African societies are very collective and communal. And as much as I like that, in America, I complain all the time about how we're too individualistic and we're too selfish and we're too, about our own thing all the time. But then when that's what you're used to and you get to other societies and other cultures, it's challenging when you're used to having personal space and alone time, and that's not a thing here. Like people, there's no such thing as personal space. There's no such thing as alone time. If you're alone, you're sick. Like something's wrong. They're knocking on your door. You can't even rest because they're like at your door. Like, what's wrong? We want to greet you. We think you're sick. What's wrong? You're not happy. You don't like it here. You're depressed. So that's definitely an adjustment. Like just getting used to having to be around people all the time, which is important. It's an important part of their culture and an important part of our integration into our communities, just visiting with people, which may mean sitting in a living room staring at people because you don't speak the same language, or even if they do understand, just not saying anything and just sitting and visiting. Like that's a very big part of their culture. And that's challenging. It's also challenging for me to be even sometimes around the larger group of Peace Corps trainees. Like we have a large group, there are 34 of us. And sometimes it's great to be like around people who have similar life experiences and that sort of thing. But a lot of them have very different life experiences than I do and think very differently than I do. And sometimes it's just too American. So those are some of the challenges. The language is difficult. It is very difficult. I'm currently in PST, which is pre-service training, which is very intense cultural language, technical and medical training to assist me at site. Some days I'm in a language class from 8 in the morning to 4:30 in the evening with breaks, of course. But that's a long day of language, and it's intense, in your face. It's not easy. That's a challenge. Being American is a challenge. Being a woman is a challenge. Women here are passive naturally, which in America sometimes I can be really passive too. However, when I need to be assertive, it's not a problem. Here, people look at you sideways, especially when you're a black woman. People think you're Rwandan. Lots of people think I'm Rwandan or some other kind of African. So it's hard for them to understand when I'm like assertive or aggressive or I have an opinion because women just don't do that here. So that's a challenge. Being black is not only a challenge with Rwandans, but also with my PCTs sometimes, which I'm going to talk about in the next video. And those are my major challenges. The food too, like it's hard for me to eat the same thing every day. But like I said, soon I'll be cooking for myself. In 2 months, I'll be cooking for myself. I'll prepare my own meals. I'll mix it up. I'll spice it up. And in Rwanda, it gets dark very early. It starts getting dark around 5-ish. I have a curfew. All PCVs, well, PCTs, and probably PCVs too, have to be home by 6:30 because by 6:30 p.m. it's black, like it's dark outside and you can't see in front of you. And if you live in a rural area, which Kamonyi is rural, not as rural as some other places, but it's certainly not Kigali. It's dark and you can't see, and so it's not safe to be out after 6:30. So you have to get a lot done in the day. Rwandans are very hard workers because they have to cram so much in the daytime. So a lot of times they're up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. The sun is usually up 5:30, 6 o'clock. So people are up before the sun gets up and work all day long until the sun goes down, which is usually like 6 o'clock. I hand wash all my clothes. I take bucket showers. I use the bathroom in a hole in the ground. a latrine, as we like to call it here. I don't really know if that's exactly what it is, but that's it's hard for people to understand that I am American. I find myself saying a lot of times like Ndumunya America, Ndumunya America, Ndumunya America. People do not understand that there are black people, like they don't believe that there are black people in America, because American in their mind is synonymous with white and also synonymous with rich. So I'm actually going to talk about that more in detail in another video. I'm going to do a feature video with some of my girlfriends and maybe a male friend about issues, like particular issues concerning ethnicity, religion, gender, sexuality, etc., so forth, and the challenges therein. As a final segue out of this video into the next video, I will break down the training group and tell you about a little bit about the group and the makeup of the group. So we have a large number of people from the Midwest. We are definitely represent the largest group. Particularly Wisconsin. There are so many people in our group from Wisconsin. It's crazy. Our group is very young, which surprised me a lot. Most of us are between the ages of 22 and 24. But we do have two people who are older. We have a gentleman who's 40 and a woman who is in her 30s. But the majority of us are between 22 and 24. We have 2 married couples. We have 5 African Americans, which is insane, like completely unheard of. We have a Palestinian American, a Romanian American, an Indonesian American. The male to female ratio is pretty even, also very surprising. I thought it would be a lot more women than men, but it's pretty even. We're all college educated, which is pretty much required for most education, most if not all education volunteers with the Peace Corps. And we have lots of people who fall on like varying areas of the spectrum of like sexual orientation and sexuality. We have a Muslim, we have Catholics, we have Protestants, we have people who are like spiritual but not into religion. We have people who don't identify with anything. So our group is actually pretty diverse per Peace Corps standards. It was a lot more diverse than most of us were expecting, which is a great thing. And it's exciting. And so also with that, though, being in, I guess I don't want to say a minority category, because technically I'm not a minority because I'm in Africa with other black people, but with other people who look like me. But there are still challenges being a colored volunteer, being a female volunteer, being a volunteer of faith. And so in my next video, which will, like I said, will be a feature video, I will talk in detail with some other volunteers about our unique experiences as Minority in America volunteers. So that's something we've all struggled with. We've all had our challenges with already in the first month. Actually, in our first couple of days, like we had challenges, and we know those are going to continue at site. And so we wanted to share those because we don't feel like they're discussed at length, even though there is there are Peace Corps pages like on Facebook for different groups or whatever. Shout out to the Black PCV page because they were very helpful in my and other Black volunteers' preparations for Peace Corps. So with that, I will close this video, and until next time, be safe, be peaceful, and be intelligent. Thanks for watching.